We're going to go through some of the major funding options available for you to get your music out there and make your projects as impactful as possible. We'll hear from the PRS Foundation, Help Musicians and Creative Scotland as they give us a rundown of all the funds they have available, tips and tricks for answering application questions, filling in budgets and all those other fun things. First, we'll hear from the PRS Foundation with their Grants and Programme Manager, Elizabeth Sills.
Hi there, I'm Elizabeth Sills from PRS Foundation. I'm the Grants and Programmes Manager at this PRS, and I'm here to talk to you about funding opportunities through PRS Foundation. So first of all, I'll just talk to you a little bit about who PRS Foundation are. So we are the leading UK funder of new music and talent development, and we have invested 30 million in over 6,000 initiatives since the year 2000. So I'm going to talk to you about a few things that we can fund and the kind of initiatives that we run. So what we can fund is the creation of new music, recording, touring, performance or live programming, commissions of new music, community projects that reach new audiences, creator residencies, marketing and international development. Obviously, in this period of time, there are some things that there's a lack of international development, but that's something that we generally do otherwise. So I'll just outline our applications and programs for you. So we have our open fund, which is our open fund for music creators and our open fund for organisations. So the open fund for music creators is funding of up to £5,000 for an important development opportunity. So like I said before, this can be for recording, touring, marketing, anything of a kind of, you're creating and performing the new music. So that's open 3 times a year. Also, we have our open fund for organisations, and we've supported organisations like Wide Days through there, and that's up to £10,000 for talent development initiatives, which support the new music created by music creators. Basically, to apply through the open fund, we support kind of new music and talent development as a whole, and that's what we would suggest for you to base your project around. We also have our targeted fund, Women Make Music, which runs alongside the open fund and also has 3 deadlines a year, and that is up for £5,000 for music creators who identify as women. And that can be the same again for recording, touring, marketing, and that kind of thing. It's important to kind of mention that during this pandemic, we don't usually support equipment. Sorry, it took me a long time to get there. But we are offering kind of 20% of costs of your project costs to go towards equipment at the moment in your application, and which is kind of assessed on a case-by-case basis. We also understand live performance is difficult right now, so kind of online streaming is also something that we do support at the moment. This fund is really, really popular. It's really exciting. We run 3 deadlines a year, so that would be one deadline will be around February, the other one will be around May, and then the most recent one closed in October. So if you are thinking of applying for this fund, the next deadline will be around February, and it will probably open around December time. So you have plenty of time to apply. So I'll just outline kind of a little bit about the application process there. On the application, we ask for kind of things like 2 music examples and information about your plan. What I would kind of advise you to do if you are thinking of applying would be to obviously submit the best music examples that you have, and then in your plan kind of think of it as a specific kind of timeline, as to talk about where you are now and where you hope this project will get you to, and how the project itself will get you there. So think of it as a process of a whole. So so if you're applying for a recording, what will hopefully be the results of that? It's really important to kind of emphasize the point of why now, through an application, why it's the best time for you to be applying at this moment. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what level you need to be at to apply for this funding. So open funding and Women Make Music is open to all career stages and all genres. As a kind of rule, we suggest that you've been kind of going for a year and a half as a professional music creator, but it is all on a case by case basis. So I feel the best way to kind of assess whether it's right for you to apply or not is to look at our website, which is prsfoundation.com, and look at the kind of grantees that we have on there and see where you are in line with them, and then decide whether you would like to make an application. So our funding through the Open Fund and Women Make Music is mainly, it is project funding. So it's really important for you to apply with a project in mind. So that, as I mentioned before, that can be recording, touring, marketing. It's up to £5,000. And it's all genres, all backgrounds and different career stages. So yeah, I would suggest that you come in with a project that's right for you at this point. A lot of the time you find music creators might apply with something that they think is going to be successful at funding, but is actually not the right thing for them at this point in time. So it's really important that you always apply for the thing that's right for you. So always, that's a top tip, is always having a project in mind. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about how things are assessed. So the application process is really quite short. As I mentioned before, it's music examples, a plan, and there will also be a budget. So applications, once the deadline's passed, everything is assessed by two different people. One person who is a kind of grants expert who works in the office, and the other person is an external expert who works specifically in the genre that you selected. So it's all completely fair process across the board. And what they will be looking for is excellent new music, a clear plan that shows how this project is going to get you through your career goals and enhance your kind of musical development. It's always good. The project is always going to be about how it will benefit the music creators involved. And sorry, I should have mentioned before, music creator is a singer, songwriter, composer, producer, anyone who is creating the new music. So when we talk about how will this benefit the music creators involved, it's talking about those who are creating the music, not those who are performing the music, unless they create and perform as well. So once we've kind of done the initial assessment, then applications are shortlisted for a panel of experts who are made up of people from around the country, all genres and backgrounds as well. It's important to let you know that it is a popular fund. The last round we had over 700 applications, but this year we have supported 39 organisations, 33 music creators, and 29 Women Make Music applications across the year. And we're currently assessing this round. So the chances are it's about a 1 in 12 chance of getting funding. And what's really important to know is that we do give feedback. So if your application isn't successful, we will provide a day where you can call in on the phone and talk to a member of staff here. So yeah, I would recommend that you always ask for feedback. I'll just kind of finish off with a few like top tips. So always look at the eligibility. Are you right for this fund? Is there any funding prerequisites? Have you read the guidelines properly? Don't rush the application. Note the deadlines on the website. Always send it to a third person. I recommend that you send it to someone who doesn't work in music at all, so they can see that it makes complete sense. Make it clear. Don't assume that anyone will read into this application. They will only be able to see what you have put on their application form. So make sure your music examples work, and they will work for 3 months because our process time is 10 weeks. And always with the budget, make sure it balances. That means that the expenditure and the income need to work out to the same amount. So it's a project that can't make money or lose money, essentially. Yeah. So we also have other funding options, but I think that Open Fund and Women Make Music is great for today. But if you want to look into next steps like Momentum, Writer Producer Fund, the Composer Fund, please do have a look at our website, prsfoundation.com. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for that, Elizabeth. Some very helpful information there for everyone. Next up, we have Help Musicians with their Programme and Outreach Officer, David Culbert.
Hello, good people of Off the Record. My name is David Culbert. I'm the Programme and Outreach Officer for Help Musicians in Scotland. First of all, a big thank you to the team at Off the Record for inviting us to be part of this really awesome digital event and conference that they're doing. So, who is Help Musicians? We are an independent music charity that wants to see a world where musicians thrive, and we offer a lifetime of support when we need it the most. So we've been asked here today by Off the Record to come and chat about different funding opportunities that we have to help support musicians with their careers. So we have a bunch of different funds that can help, get you into the studio, release music, collaborate with other disciplines, and also to help learn and upskill your musicianship, your practice, your craft, if you will. So what funds? Let me tell you about some of the funds that we have then. A fund that we have is called Do It Differently, and this fund is probably our most sought after fund. So Do It Differently exists to support musicians to create new music, develop their skills and build income streams and business skills to drive their careers forward with the tools they need regardless of genre or career stage. Whether you need financial support to get in the studio, business advice to help market your new release, invest into merchandise to elevate your brand, or a grant to hire your dream session musicians, the Do It Differently Fund may be able to support you. So that fund, that's like £3,000 worth towards your actual project, and an additional £2,000 worth of support around business mentoring and health and well-being kind of services as well. So what kind of stuff then would you say Do It Differently could support? For example, if you wanted to record and release an EP, this fund could help with that. It could also, if you're looking to maybe, even if you don't even need to record your EP, if you're looking to just kind of promote, market and release it, the fund can also pay for that. Pre-COVID, parts of that fund could go toward touring costs, but how we've adapted the fund in the current climate is we're allowing artists and musicians to use the majority of the fund to get the music out there via, using traditional promotion channels like PR, hiring kind of radio pluggers, or looking at new ways at kind of streaming and doing live performances that way as well. Another fund that we have is called the Transmission Fund, and This is a learning and development fund. It exists to support creators build their skills in order to take their careers to the next stage, provide grants to up to £1,500 to support you develop your craft, add another string to your bow, hone your practice, or take another dimension to your work altogether. Now, let's just say you're a guitar player and you can be mentored by, insert really well-known established guitarist. This fund could pay for you to get mentored by that person. A lot of musicians also use it to potentially get, mentoring around kind of recording, mixing, mastering, because it can help them be more self-sustaining in their career. And again, this fund could just cover international travel, kind of pre-COVID. We've heard of one case in particular where a musician went and got mentored by Steve Albini, who is a producer that did like Nirvana's Nevermind and the Pixies and stuff. So that was a really kind of cool kind of project. And how we've adapted that to, in the COVID era is, as well as it just being for musical disciplines, we're also allowing people to learn, video editing, image creating, content creation, learn how to use social media properly. So those other skills that's maybe holding somebody back, if they kind of learn them, it would allow them to kind of keep creating and kind of releasing music. What we also have is a fund that we do in partnership with our friends at the Mobile Trust. This fund is very similar to the Do It Differently fund that I mentioned in terms of what it covers and what it can do, but because we do it in partnership with our friends at the Mobile Trust, the fund exists to facilitate opportunities for musicians making hip-hop, grime, R&B, soul, music of African origin, reggae, jazz and gospel. So those are the main kind of funds that we would use to kind of support kind of people's careers. Some advice in doing an application, first of all, would be your mindset. Don't go into this thinking, the organisations like the Dragon from The Hobbit sitting on a big pile of money, not want to give it away. We want to help as many musicians as we can. So that's the first thing, is your mindset when you're doing this. At the other end of that application, there's people who want to help. Outside of tell us your name and all that stuff, there's 4 main parts to our applications, all right? The first part is, your biography. Tell us about this journey you've been on. Don't hold back on the details. Has there been any notable tours? Has there been any awards that you've received that can really help show that journey that you've been on? The second part is your activity. And this is what you're going to do with your project. So are you going to record and release an EP? Tell us who you're going to record with. Why are you going to record with those people? How are you going to release it? Are you going to work with a PR company? Are you going to hire a radio plugger? And also give us a timeline, all right? Give us as much information as you can on that, when you want things to happen. It doesn't need to be biblical and written in stone, we understand, especially now, things are changing a lot. But give us that timeline of when you want things to kind of happen. The third part is the impact. We want to support projects that have the biggest impact and that are going to move the dial in a positive direction for someone's kind of career. And the fourth part is the budget. So again, try and be very clear on what Help Musicians is paying for. So there's very clear columns on how our budgets are kind of formatted. Tell us, so are we paying for the EP recording or the promotion? Tell us what we're paying for. If you have other funding sources, tell us what they're paying for. And another very important point would be if you're going to hire musicians, we expect people to get paid the musicians union rate, and there's a rates card usually in with the kind of budget. So what I'm going to do just now is that's the 4 main parts that we would to our application. So if I can show you where that lives on our site. So I'm just going to do a quick share screen just now. So this is our website, okay? So all of the funding around someone's career and how we support all live in here. It's called the Creative Programme. You just kind of scroll down to current opportunities. All right. and here's all the funds that are usually live around here. And what we would kind of say is, you know, have a read. There is guidance to these. There is a bit more kind of guidance that can help you, you know, help you with your application as well. Would really look at the guidelines as well when you're kind of filling these in. And also what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some links and other tabs, and we're going to put these links available in the off the record pack, and it's going to be available for people to see once this kind of video goes live. So here's a step-by-step guide by one of my colleagues on filling in your application. So that's the kind of the parts that I just kind of spoke about there. We have a fund about, you know, applying using for video. So the first 3 parts that I mentioned in an application, you can actually, you don't need to write them. If you want, you can just upload a video, you know, and you can tell us your bio, you can tell us about that activity and stuff. So here's a really, you know, clear guide on how best to do that with examples of video applications. And here we have how to submit an excellent do it differently budget. Again, what we're kind of looking for there with examples of how a budget's formatted and how you should kind of lay that out. And here's some usually common questions again that we use around kind of do it differently. Again, have a read through that. Lots of great kind of tips and insights there by the team. And the kind of last one is a new thing that we've added into the applications, which is a risk assessment. Now, you're not going to get scored negatively if your risk assessment, you know, isn't, you know, the best risk assessment. We just want you to really think about scenario planning. What's going to happen if, you know, there's another lockdown? What's going to happen if the studio you're going to use suddenly becomes unavailable? And it gets you kind of thinking about, you know, what is your plan B for these type of things? So again, we've got a guide on how to best, you know, do that. And all of these links are going to be available when this kind of chat goes live. And then, like I said, if you've got any questions at all, you know, drop us an email at scotland@helpmusicians.org.uk. My contact details are going to be on this as well. And if you want to chat about any type of funding, or if you before you submit an application, we're happy to set up an advice session and kind of do that. Sadly, we can't rubber stamp an application and say this is great, this is going to get funded, but we can definitely point you in the right direction to make sure that you're applying for the fund that you're applying for. Thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you for all that great information, David. It's really great to hear about all the ways Help Musicians are supporting people at the moment. Finally, we have Creative Scotland's music officer, Jamie Houston.
Hi, my name's Jamie Houston. I'm a music officer for Creative Scotland. Creative Scotland's the public body that supports the arts, screen and creative industries across all parts of Scotland on behalf of everyone who lives, works or visits here. We enable people and organisations to work in and experience the arts, screen and creative industries in Scotland by helping others to develop great ideas and bring them to life. We distribute funding from the Scottish Government and the National Lottery. To my contact details, I'll give you my email at the end of this presentation, but please take note of our website and also our Twitter handle. I'm going to talk today about 2 funds. I'm going to touch on the Nurturing Talent Fund and also the Open Fund, which is otherwise known as the Sustaining Creative Development Fund. Just a bit of background on the initial fund. This came from the Youth Arts Emergency Funding. And in August 2020, the Scottish Government announced the culture and heritage sectors in Scotland were to benefit from £59 million of funding to protect jobs and help the industry weather the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. And £3 million was allocated to support youth arts and ensure creative opportunities for children and young people to continue to exist across Scotland despite the COVID-19 pandemic. I've given a website there to check out all of the funds that were made available through that Youth Arts Emergency Funding. So please check that out on the Creative Scotland website. I'm going to touch on the Nurturing Talent Fund. Now, this is managed by the National Youth Arts Advisory Group and Young Scot. The fund was established in 2014 with the aim of providing directly to young people for their own artistic and creative development. And any young person living in Scotland who's aged between 11 and 25 can apply for the funding. You can apply for any amount between £50 and £1,000 for projects. Now, you can apply on your own or as part of a group. And if you're applying as part of a group, most of the members of the group should be between 11 and 25-year-old. Currently open for applications, and there are 3 deadlines: the 6th of December, 14th of March, and the 6th of June. And I've given a website there to check out this particular fund. A lot of time at Creative Scotland spent on what's known as the Sustaining Creative Development Fund, the Open Fund. This has been adapted from the original Open Project Fund, which many people will be aware of. It's our most commonly used fund. It's supplied purely by the National Lottery, and this is based around projects, any ideas that you may have. Funding's available for between £1,000 and £100,000, and the fund aims to enable individuals and organisations to explore ways of working that will help them to adapt and respond to current changing circumstances, particularly around changes that have come around with the COVID pandemic. The overall budget for the Open Fund to individuals and the Open Fund to organisations totals at £7.5 million of National Lottery funding. There are separate funding strands for the individuals and organisations, and this is to ensure that individuals will not be in direct competition with organisations for funding, giving individuals a fighting chance, essentially. The fund's open all year round with no deadlines, can support activity for up to 12 months. Now, there are certain areas of criteria. It is a competitive process, so it's important to remember these 3 main areas. The creative and artistic strength of the project is very important. The idea and its contribution to supporting creativity in others. So it's really important to have an idea of what the project is, why the timing's right for that particular project, and also where the project is likely to take you or others in a creative sense. Also the strength of the impact of the project and the benefit for others for now and the future. So what we mean by that is it could have a community edge to it. It could be making an album. It could be historically touring, but that's not so relevant at the moment. But really what we want to know is that the project is going to reach people, because ultimately what we're looking at is public funding. And also project management, that third point there. The strength of the plans to achieve the project, really important. And also having a concise and a detailed budget that allows us to analyse the strength of your financial planning. Now, what happens is when you apply for this particular fund, an assessor like myself or one of my colleagues would assess the project against the criteria, which would then be sent along with the application form to a panel for final decision on whether or not the project is successful or otherwise. I've just listed a few tips here. It's really important to get a real sense of what the project is and why it's important to you. It has to be relatively well formulated prior to coming in for funding. We as officers at Creative Scotland are happy to talk through projects, talking about the idea. It's important to get at the right stage for funding. It could sometimes be too early. So we're happy to talk through the project and what it means to you prior to that submission of application, because these things take a long time to put together, and we do appreciate that. So also, don't start with what you think we want to hear. This is very important that you're telling us what the project is and why it's important. You're the leader of the project. Project funding isn't designed to validate your ideas. It's there to support your ideas for moving forward. It's very important to think about what the criteria means in the context of your project. So it could be the project application form itself could be viewed as relatively daunting, but it could also be viewed as an opportunity to formulate your plans. It's giving you questions that could help ultimately steer your management of a project forward. It's a blank canvas essentially in that regard, so something to think about there. And again, going back to my earlier point, if you're not sure about something, we're here to answer questions and talk you through ideas. And if you're not successful, we do offer feedback, but again, we can talk about the feedback. You can ask to see the assessment. That last point there is, there's no magic formula. Often we're asked, what's the correct amount to ask for? How do you formulate an application form? Really what we want to know is that you can formulate an original and interesting idea. And that's good to help your creative process move forward. So really there is no magic formula. It's about you managing the project and presenting a strong case to us. Equalities, diversity and inclusion are very important to our application process. As a public funder, we have a duty to ensure that our funding benefits as wide a range of people as possible across the country. And we expect you to promote equalities, diversity and inclusion in your activity, to tell us specifically how you're going to do that. We currently ask the question within each of our criteria areas, and we're asking you to think about what EDI means for this aspect of your project. So start from your project. What do these things mean in terms of promoting to audiences, artists involved in your project, and potentially making a difference to current circumstances? Is that possible? If the project isn't lending itself to these principles, then again we can talk about that, and we can offer some advice in that area. Access costs are another example, and we want as many people to enjoy your art as possible, and that's something to consider. And again, same principles apply to the environmental impact of projects. We expect you to consider the impact of your activity on the environment, and again, those are areas that we can offer some advice on if needs be. Evaluation and monitoring. Now, the reason we pay such attention to evaluation and monitoring is really for two reasons. We want to know that your project has made an effect. We want to know how it's going to affect your ongoing practice and how it might influence your next project. So we ask you what you want to achieve and how you'll know how you've done it, and what kind of approaches can you build into your project to help you learn. A lot of this is also to do with the fact that in order for us to promote projects and help projects through, it's useful for us to reflect on what's been successful in the past, not just for yourself, but for other projects similar to yours. So again, it's an opportunity to let us know what works and what doesn't. So again, going back to the area of project management, we assess risk, particularly now. We ask you to assess risk. What does that mean to public funding? For example, at the moment, we're not encouraging international travel for obvious reasons. That'll be reviewed, I would assume, in the new year. But we want to know how you can mitigate particular risks that might be raised by your proposal. Letters of support are important. Now, this comes along with other documents that you can submit as part of an application form. If you, for instance, are proposing a recording project, it's helpful for us to know that producers, engineers, potentially labels, PR agencies, etc., are interested in doing what you say they might do in the application form. So that's where letters of support come in very useful. And also, I've highlighted some policies. Safeguarding. We want to know that you're offering a safe working space for those working on your project. So again, more advice on that can be found on our website. I've given some general advice here just about project working. it's really useful to get into the habit of talking about and reflecting on your work and practice. Talk to us, talk to your peers, talk to organisations, and I'll give a list of them in a minute. Look at what Creative Scotland are already funding in terms of platforms to your development. Network, do what you can. It's hugely important because we live in a relatively small country. It's useful to tap into the resources that are already being funded. There are some other resources out there, other funding partners as well. PRS Foundation, for example, Help Musicians. Help Musicians have a very helpful tool called their Funding Wizard, which can be found on their website. And the Funding Wizard offers an opportunity to look at all the funding, public funding that might be available for your project. So please check that out on their website. Again, ask someone to read over your application. From Creative Scotland's point of view, we can't be the person to do that because that would be giving an advantage to your project, but other people, your peers, etc., someone that you trust might have an idea of how your project might look. It's really useful for someone else to have a look. And again, there will be rejection. It is a competitive process. At the moment, it's particularly competitive for funding, public funding. So going back to that point about funding not being about validation, because what you do is always going to be valid to you and to others. Funding shouldn't reflect that. You should never be discouraged in what you're doing if you're not successful with funding. So it's not a personal judgment on your work, and quite often it could just be due to the competitive process that you're up against. So again, we're happy to do that, talk about that and feed it back. So again, there's this list that I was talking about earlier, a number of great organisations operating in Scotland, and there will be more, which I haven't been able to squeeze into this page, but please check out the following. Each of these organisations offer a unique platform for development, and they're all very approachable and definitely worth checking out. So I'll share this presentation with Off the Record, who'll hopefully be able to share it with you. So again, my name is Jamie Houston. Thanks for listening. I work for Creative Scotland, Music Officer. My email address is there. Please check out our website and Twitter for any updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We hope this panel has made you feel more knowledgeable about all of your funding options